Let me start by saying something most men don't want to hear. You can make a woman miss you, even if she's not interested right now. And no, I'm not talking about playing childish games or pretending to be someone you're not. I'm talking about understanding how women really think, how we process attraction, and how absence, confidence, and subtle influence can shift the way a woman feels about you. Here's the truth. Most guys spend too much time trying to convince a woman to like them. They overtext, overplan, overexplain. And what happens? She loses interest because women are wired to respond to men who have their own lives, their own confidence, and their own sense of value. Trying to chase her hard, that rarely works. But if you know how to create space, how to spark curiosity, and how to trigger the subtle emotional pull that women naturally feel toward men they respect and find intriguing, that changes everything. I want to give you insight that goes deeper than generic advice. I'm going to talk to you like a woman who's seen this play out 1,000 times, who knows the patterns, and who can tell you exactly what moves create that magnetic pull. This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding human nature, female psychology, and the dynamics of attraction in a way that's honest and practical. By the end of this video, you'll understand why absence can create desire, how your actions, or inactions, affect her subconscious, and how small, strategic choices on your part can make a woman think about you more than you realize. Even women who aren't currently interested in you can feel that magnetic pull when you step into the right mindset and behavior. So if you're ready to stop guessing, stop chasing, and start triggering genuine interest, I want you to pay close attention. Because the truth about making a woman miss you isn't about grand gestures. It's about subtle, undeniable shifts in how you exist in her world. 1. The power of absence. Why pulling back sparks obsession. I'm going to tell you something most men completely misunderstand. Absence doesn't make the heart grow fonder. It makes her brain work harder. Let me explain. Women are wired to notice what's missing. When someone important suddenly isn't there, our minds start filling in the blanks, imagining the what-ifs, replaying moments and wondering why we're thinking about them so much. And yes, that includes you. Think about this. Maybe you met a woman, you connected, you laughed, there was chemistry, but she seemed distant and you tried to overcompensate. You texted more, called more, maybe even tried to prove you're worth her time. Guess what happened? That attraction fizzled. But now, imagine you pull back. You stop chasing. You get busy with your life, your goals, your friends, your passions. You're still interested, but you're not available 24/7. That's the trigger. Women notice absence in ways men rarely consider. When you're constantly present, you're predictable. You become background noise. But when you step back, suddenly she's thinking, where is he? Why isn't he around? Why does it feel empty when he's gone? That's when curiosity kicks in, and that's when the emotional pull starts building. I've seen it happen so many times. A guy I barely cared about suddenly disappeared for a few weeks. No calls, no texts, nothing. And I started thinking about him constantly. I replayed moments we had, wondered if he'd moved on, and yes, I missed him. That feeling came out of nowhere, but it wasn't magic. It was absence creating space in my mind. Here's the lesson. You don't need to manipulate her or play mind games. You simply need to exist in a way that she can't take for granted. Show her you have a life, a purpose, a direction. Step away. Give her the space to notice what she's missing. The more she feels your absence, the more she'll mentally circle back to you. And often, the more she'll wish she had paid attention sooner. Most men never get this because they fear being ignored or fear losing her attention. But here's the truth. Pulling back isn't rejection, it's attraction. It shifts the dynamic from desperation to intrigue. And once she realizes you're not always at her disposal, she starts valuing your presence in a way she never did when you were constantly there. That's the subtle power of absence. 2. Confidence is sexy, even when she thinks she doesn't care. Let me be real with you. Confidence is one of the most attractive things a man can have, and it doesn't matter if she pretends not to notice. Women are constantly evaluating subtle cues: how you carry yourself, how you handle your life, how you react when things don't go your way. And even if she acts indifferent, trust me, she's noticing everything. Confidence isn't about being arrogant or loud. It's about knowing who you are, what you want, and not bending over backward to prove your worth. A confident man doesn't text obsessively. He doesn't wait around for her attention or approval. He lives his life, sets boundaries, and keeps his energy in the right places. That's irresistible. Here's the thing most men get wrong. They think being nice or being available equals attraction. It doesn't. What really attracts a woman is a man who has value independent of her approval. When you demonstrate that your happiness, your focus, and your purpose don't revolve around her, she starts to feel something deeper, even if she isn't immediately interested. Confidence also shows in your decisions. A man who knows what he wants, who makes plans and follows through, signals stability and strength. Women are wired to respond to that, even subconsciously. You might be thinking, she doesn't care about me, so why should I care? But ironically, the less you bend to her indifference, the more she wonders why you're unbothered. And that's exactly the spark that triggers her curiosity. Another key point: confidence attracts without force. You don't have to chase, argue, or prove yourself. You simply exist in your energy, calm, collected, and self-assured. That energy is magnetic. Women sense it instinctively, and it often overrides initial disinterest. A woman might resist openly, but she can't help thinking about a man who carries himself with purpose and dignity. 3. The subtle art of being unpredictable. Here's something most men completely miss. Women are drawn to unpredictability, but not in a chaotic or unreliable way. We're talking about small, subtle shifts that keep a woman's mind engaged and curious about you. Predictable behavior is comfortable, yes, but it's boring. When a man is too predictable, she knows exactly what to expect, and she often stops thinking about him altogether. Being unpredictable doesn't mean being flaky or disrespectful. It means having a life and choices that aren't dictated by her attention or approval. It's showing up in ways that surprise her, making her realize that you're not just another guy who bends to her schedule, moods, or whims. A woman will notice when you have layers she can't immediately figure out, when your energy is consistent, but your actions aren't easy to predict. That's the tension that keeps her thinking about you. Here's what's going on psychologically. When a woman can't fully predict your behavior, her brain fills in the gaps. She starts imagining scenarios, replaying interactions, and wondering why she can't fully read you. That mental engagement is powerful. It's how desire and curiosity are maintained, even if she initially wasn't interested. Your unpredictability keeps you alive in her mind in a way that constant attention never will. Another layer to this is emotional availability versus emotional distance. You can be warm, engaging, and attentive, but still maintain boundaries. Women are attracted to men who can navigate that balance because it signals emotional strength. If you're too open, too predictable, or too eager to please, it removes the challenge and she loses interest. If you stay a little unpredictable, she remains mentally and emotionally invested in figuring you out. It also works in your favor to mix confidence with subtle intrigue. A woman notices a man who is consistent in his principles, but doesn't reveal everything at once. She notices when you act in ways that show your independence, that highlight your interests, and that maintain a bit of mystery. That combination, confidence, independence, and unpredictability, is what triggers the mental pull that can make her start thinking about you more than she thought she would. Here's the truth. Women like to feel a sense of discovery, even with men they weren't initially drawn to. We're curious by nature, and when you combine absence, confidence, and unpredictability, you're creating a mental puzzle that keeps her attention. It's subtle. It's not flashy, but it works. And the best part? You're not doing it to manipulate her. You're doing it by simply being a man who has a life, a purpose, and the ability to hold his own energy. That's why unpredictability is so effective. It's not about playing games. It's about making her wonder, think, and feel. And once she's doing that, you've already triggered one of the strongest forces in female attraction, curiosity. 4. Why ignoring her can actually make her think about you more. Let's be real. Most men panic when a woman doesn't respond the way they want. They overtext, overcall, and overcompensate, thinking that attention equals attraction. But here's the thing. It almost always does the opposite. Women are wired to notice scarcity. When you stop giving her constant attention, when you stop being instantly available, her mind starts to fill in the gaps. And that's when she begins to think about you more than you could have imagined. Ignoring her doesn't mean being rude, disrespectful, or cold. It means creating space where she can reflect, realize, and even regret how she treated you or how much she overlooked you. Women notice when a man stops catering to them without explanation. That absence triggers reflection. It forces her to ask questions like, why isn't he reaching out? Or, what's he doing without me? That curiosity often turns into longing. Here's another truth. Women crave emotional tension in relationships. Constant availability removes tension. It eliminates the mystery. When a man is always present, it signals that he has no other priorities, no other options, and no independence. That's boring. But when you step back, when you maintain your life, and don't make yourself overly accessible, you create a subtle tension that women feel even if they don't consciously recognize it. That tension is magnetic. It pulls her thoughts towards you. I'll be honest, it's uncomfortable for some men to do this because they fear losing her entirely. But here's the thing. If she's worth your time, she will notice your absence. If she doesn't, then she was never truly invested to begin with. Either way, you're signaling your self-respect and your value, and that's far more attractive than chasing her approval. Ignoring her strategically also allows you to regain control of the dynamic. Instead of reacting to her moods or messages, you set the pace. You decide when and how you engage. That subtle control communicates confidence and independence, which are two of the most attractive qualities in a man. Women respond to men who lead themselves first before trying to lead someone else. 5. Creating emotional tension without saying a word. One of the most powerful ways to make a woman miss you is through emotional tension, but not the kind where you're arguing or stressing. I'm talking about a subtle push-pull, a presence that she can feel without you having to explain yourself. Women are emotional creatures. We feel energy before we even register words. When you create tension in the right way, she starts thinking about you constantly, even if she wasn't initially interested. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you've been seeing a woman casually. You hang out, laugh together, and there's chemistry. But you're not texting her constantly. One day, she texts you, but instead of responding immediately, you take your time. You're not rude, you're not ignoring her forever, but she notices the difference. That tiny delay creates a subtle shift in her mind. She starts wondering, why isn't he replying? Is he busy? Does he not care? Suddenly, Her mind is occupied with you, trying to figure you out, or think about when you hang out in person. You're attentive, fun, and charming, but you don't over-invest in her reactions. You're confident, light, and unpredictable. Maybe you leave a conversation on a high note, or you don't respond to every little thing she says. That creates emotional tension that makes her want to chase your energy without you ever asking for it. She's left with a feeling she can't name but can't ignore. She's thinking about you long after you've left. Here's the secret. Women are naturally drawn to men who are emotionally interesting, not emotionally available 24/7. When you give her too much, she can become complacent. When you give her just enough intrigue, through timing, your energy, and your presence, she starts replaying moments with you in her head. That's how emotional tension works. It's about creating curiosity and a subconscious pull without saying a word. The key is subtlety. You're not manipulating her feelings. You're simply showing her that your energy and attention are valuable. You exist with your own priorities, and she notices. That awareness triggers longing. She begins to reflect on the moments you shared, the things you said, the way you carried yourself. And slowly, her mind starts to loop back to you more than she expected. 6. Your life. First, how independence makes you irresistible. One of the most overlooked truths about attraction is this. Women are drawn to men who have a life of their own. I'm not just talking about having a job or hobbies. I'm talking about having purpose, direction, and fulfillment that doesn't rely on her attention. When your life is full, exciting, and meaningful, you become naturally magnetic, even to a woman who wasn't interested at first. Here's why. Women are wired to notice energy. If your focus is on your own growth, your own experiences, and your own happiness, that energy is palpable. It's different from desperation or constant seeking. She can feel it, even if she doesn't say anything. A man who is self-contained, confident, and engaged in his world is far more attractive than one who is constantly checking in, waiting for validation, or bending to her moods. Independence also creates scarcity, and scarcity drives curiosity. When a woman realizes you have priorities, passions, and people in your life besides her, she starts to notice what she's missing. That subtle awareness triggers attraction at a subconscious level. She begins thinking about you, imagining how you fit into her life, and yes, she starts to miss the presence of a man who isn't always just a text or call away. Another important point. Independence communicates confidence without you having to say a word. You're showing her that you value yourself first, which makes her value you more. Women respond to men who have boundaries and aren't willing to sacrifice their happiness or integrity for approval. That's a huge factor in why absence and independence create longing. Being independent doesn't mean ignoring her completely or being cold. It means you live your life fully while maintaining connection on your own terms. You make her feel your presence without making yourself her possession. That subtle balance keeps her interested, curious, and even slightly obsessed with the fact that you're living a life she can't control or predict. Finally, independence protects your energy and your worth. Men who rely on constant attention from women often lose their self-respect. When you prioritize your own life, your own growth, and your own goals, you naturally trigger a woman's desire and her recognition of your value. She begins to think about you when you're not around, because your absence isn't empty, it's meaningful. 7. Stop being available. The wake-up call. Every man needs all right. I'm going to be blunt here. Most men sabotage their own chances without even realizing it. You show too much availability, you over-explain, you bend over backward to impress, and then you wonder why she doesn't miss you, or worse, why she loses interest. Here's the hard truth. Women don't miss what's always there. If you want her to feel your absence, you need to create it intentionally. Being too available communicates low value. When a woman can call you anytime, get an immediate response, or always rely on you to fill her time, you become predictable. You become background noise. She stops thinking about you because she knows she can always have you. That's the opposite of attraction. To trigger desire, curiosity, and yes, longing, you must pull back without guilt, without drama, and without making her feel punished. Let me challenge you further. Do you realize how much your ego gets in the way? Many men think that being present constantly proves worthiness or affection. It doesn't. A woman who feels your absence will start noticing your value naturally. She'll start thinking about the conversations you had, the energy you brought, the way you carried yourself. That reflection is far more powerful than anything a man can say or do to convince her to like him. Here's the wake-up call. If you don't respect your own time and attention, don't expect her to either. When you overextend yourself, she subconsciously senses it. She feels that your world revolves around her, and ironically, that reduces attraction. Women are drawn to men who have lives, passions, and priorities outside of her. That's why absence, unpredictability, and independence are so effective. They signal value without you needing to say it. You need to shift your perspective. Stop thinking about how to get her to like you. Start thinking about how to make your life so magnetic, so full, and so confident that she can't ignore it. Show up when you want, not when you feel pressured. Give attention sparingly, with intention. And when you're not around, focus on yourself, your growth, your goals, your happiness. That's how you create a scenario where she can miss you genuinely, not just because you're playing games, but because you're a man who commands attention simply by being yourself. Let me leave you with a truth most men refuse to face. You will never make a woman miss you if you're always trying to make her like you. Chasing, over-explaining, bending over backward. These things destroy attraction faster than anything else. Women respond to presence, confidence, independence, and subtle tension. They respond to a man who values himself first, who isn't predictable, who doesn't give his attention away for free. If you want her to miss you, even a woman who wasn't initially interested, you have to step into that energy. Pull back without guilt. Live your life fully. Be confident, unpredictable, and independent. Create moments she can't forget, not through grand gestures, but through the way you exist in the world. When she starts to notice your absence, she starts to feel your value. That's how longing begins. I want you to think about your own actions. Are you making yourself too available? Are you chasing approval? Or are you living your life in a way that naturally draws her curiosity and desire? This isn't manipulation. It's self-respect. And self-respect is magnetic. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever stepped back and watched a woman start thinking about you in a way that surprised you? Or maybe you've struggled with giving space without feeling anxious. Drop your experience in the comments. I'll be reading, and I promise to respond. Let's make this a conversation where we cut through the fluff and get to the truth about attraction, desire, and what really makes a woman miss a man. Remember, stop chasing, start existing, and watch how the dynamic changes.